The big change we've seen in the past 12 months is that gas prices, especially in Europe, have dropped a lot. But Shell's gas business is proving pretty resilient. So profits down a bit on year, as expected, but holding up quarter on quarter. And they've kept up the pace of buybacks. It really is a very sort of strong, dependable performance. Investors seem quite pleased. So what they're getting is, dependability. After lots of years of ups and downs, COVID was a huge problem for them, and the dividend cut. And now they seem to be back to steady, pretty good returns. So, yeah, about positive overall, I think.
OK, so that's the story around Shell. What links, well, Shell and Total Energies both being talked about as potentially interested in moving their primary listings to New York. This generates a lot of chatter, this kind of story. And interesting to see the French finance minister out this morning talking to domestic TV in France, saying it's important that Total Energies' primary listing stays in Paris. What do we make of that kind of French intervention?
Yeah, I think it's to be expected. The French have a more interventionist stance when it comes to their companies. The reason that Total is talking about this, and Shell also, is this valuation gap they have with their US peers. The Exxon Chevron trading at much higher valuations. And the perception, at least certainly what Pouyanné said, explaining his rationale, is that because of ESG concerns, European financial institutions just aren't buying into oil companies. But this obstacle doesn't really exist in the US. So they think if they move to the US as a primary listing, they can get a higher valuation, which is what their job is to achieve, really. So.
Yes, you are speaking guys' language. The amount of PE and multiples. And big oil that we've been speaking about on this show. Talk to us about the other piece of this business, though. If I remember correctly, Shell actually helped drive the FTSE 100 to a record at the time a couple of months ago because of LNG nat gas revenue.
Yeah.
What's going on in their trading business?
Their trading business is doing pretty well. At the end of last year, they were reporting exceptional earnings because the LNG business now, because since the invasion of Ukraine, the LNG business has been making so much money because they can divert cargoes from lower value markets to high value markets. It's been really driving their profits. That's come off the peak, but they're still doing really well. They have higher volumes because they're producing a bit more, and they've resolved some maintenance issues at some of their plants. So really, the LNG business, which Shell has really invested into and is, I think, one of the biggest companies out there, is looking like a really strong long-term bet, especially as it looks like Russian gas is going to be out of Europe for the foreseeable future.